Loneliness doesn't mean there's nobody around you. Loneliness means you don't feel connected. You may be alone, far away, with nobody to talk to, but if you feel connected, you don't feel lonely. So to overcome loneliness, most people just go around and look for somebody to be with. They get attached to somebody, they want to hold on to the person, stay with me, don't go away, don't leave me. Even when they leave for a few hours or for a few days, they become very agitated and restless and feel very lonely. They will call on the phone, where are you, when are you coming? I feel so lonely. So remember, why are people feeling so lonely these days? The more people there are, the more lonely they feel. Many times, especially when I was living in the forest, very quiet and peaceful, nobody around, nothing to do, and that is not easy. Nothing to do is very difficult. That's why people are running around and trying to do something, trying to keep them occupied. But I was so interested in meditation, I gave away all my books, and my teacher told me not to read any books. It was very hard for me to do. I stopped reading for a few years. It was the hardest thing for me to do, actually. So I lived in the forest for a long time, just keeping my mind right in this moment, in the present. Meditating, that means meditating. Not thinking too much about the past, not thinking too much about the future, but just keeping my mind right in the moment, in the present. Paying attention to what I see, what I hear, what I think, what I feel. Sometimes not thinking much, just paying attention, just knowing what is happening. So the mind becomes almost empty and calm. Empty doesn't mean it has no content. Empty of thought only, but it was very calm and quiet and peaceful. The mind was full of calmness and peacefulness. And I felt very free too, because when you don't think too much, you feel free. It's the thought that makes you bound. So once you stop thinking, you can feel that your mind expands. It becomes free. So sometimes I was doing walking meditation in the forest, and the night was moonlit night with a lot of stars, very clear sky, and my mind was very calm. I was meditating while walking. And when you get right in the middle, right in the moment, you even forget about yourself. You are not thinking about yourself anymore. And then suddenly I felt like I'm connected with the whole universe. I was not living on the world, I was living in the universe. I felt connected with even trees and birds and animals, everybody, all the stars and the moon also. So that feeling was a very powerful experience in my life, to feel connected with the whole universe. These days, people become more and more isolated. They don't feel connected. Not even with their family members. Some people I know, they don't feel connected even with their family members. They don't feel it anymore. They feel so isolated and alone. They feel very, very lonely. But when you get into this feeling of connected with the whole universe, you don't feel lonely anymore. So I was living in the forest alone, with nothing, no possession, nobody to talk with, not even a book to read. But I did not feel lonely. I found out something very powerful and meaningful to me. I never feel lonely anymore. So once you feel connected with everything and everybody, your loneliness disappears. So then I remember that loneliness doesn't mean there's nobody around you. Loneliness means you don't feel connected. You may be alone, far away, with nobody to talk to, but if you feel connected, you don't feel lonely. So to overcome loneliness, most people just go around and look for somebody to be with. They get attached to somebody, they want to hold on to the person, stay with me, don't go away, don't leave me. Even when they leave for a few hours or for a few days, they become very agitated and restless and feel very lonely. They will call on the phone, where are you, when are you coming? I feel so lonely. So remember, why are people feeling so lonely these days? The more people there are, the more lonely they feel. So how can you overcome loneliness? First learn to meditate, to live in the moment. By living like that, your mind becomes calm and peaceful and quiet and strong, very strong. Mindfulness makes you very strong. You will develop inner strength. So the first verse, I have no parents, I make the heavens and earth my parents, is very deep and profound the more you think about it. And another one, I have no home. I believe everybody, all of you, everybody has a home. At least a roof and walls and a floor. That's a home at least. It may be a big one or it may be a small one, but there's a place where you belong, where you stay. But here, the poet is saying, I have no home. How do you understand that? And the second line, I make mindfulness my home. That is the profoundest part. I make mindfulness my home. So the poet was not talking about the physical home. The poet was talking about mental home, a home for your mind. You may have a big house, physically, but mentally you may be homeless. I have seen many people, homeless people. I was in Calcutta in January and February. In India actually, I visited many places. I saw many people living on the roadsides, on the sidewalks, homeless people. I was very sad to see those people. It must feel really terrible not to have a home, a physical home, where you can be safe, you can close the door, and you can say, nobody allowed inside. This is my place. But these people living on the roadside, on the sidewalks, they have no home, they cannot close the door. How terrible that must feel. So I feel very sad for these people. We need a home, we need to feel that we belong somewhere. But here this poor poet said, I have no home. I make mindfulness my home. So from the first time I read this verse, I felt so happy. I said, oh, this is so true, this is so true. Mindfulness is my home. If you are not mindful, what happens to your mind? Your mind just wanders around and around, running around, no place to rest. But when you are mindful, you can really feel it. It's not just a metaphor. Just practice mindfulness, pay attention to your body and mind. And you know what you're feeling, you know what you're thinking. At one point, if you keep practicing for a long time, really diligently, systematically, one point you'll come to the point where you know that you know. First you know that you are seeing, you know that you are hearing, you know that you are talking, you know that you are moving your hands. But one point you come to see that you are thinking. And then thinking stops. Then you know that there's no thought. The mind is just quiet, very calm. And you know that although it is quiet and calm, there's still this knowing there. Knowing, mindful. And you know that you know. It is called awareness of awareness. And at that point, you feel a kind of energy and power also. To know that you know is very powerful. No animal can do that. And most people cannot do that because they have never practiced mindfulness. But if you practice mindfulness long enough, you will come to that point. When thinking stops, and there's only knowing without any thought. And there's also knowing of knowing. And one of my students who practice mindfulness, who has been practicing mindfulness for a long time now, because once you really learn to be mindful, it is very hard for you not to do it anymore. Naturally your mind gets into that mode of being, knowing. So that person at that time was quite young, I believe she was about 18 or 19, quite young. But she started meditating since she was 16. And one day, in her meditation practice, her thinking stopped, and she knew that there's no thought anymore. The mind is just quiet, peaceful, and she knows that she knows. And then after that, she came to me and she said, I had a very wonderful meditation experience today. I said, I never really encourage her to meditate. I just talk about how wonderful it is to be mindful, how unique it is to be aware. No animal can do that. It is unique human quality to be mindful, to know. It's a unique human quality. And when you practice mindfulness, you become more calm and peaceful. You become lively, you become alive. When you are not mindful, you are dull, you are absent-minded. But when you are mindful, you are present. She came and she said, I was meditating, and at first I was paying attention to breathing. So I knew that breathing in and breathing out, the air rushing in and rushing out, the coming air was cool and the air going out was warm. And then I noticed that my mind was thinking of something else, and I was aware of the thought. And then after that, thinking stopped. And then my mind was very calm and quiet. And then I knew that I knew. I knew that I knew. I was aware that I was aware. Then she said, at that moment, I felt that I had become a real human being. This is not my word. This is not my sentence. I never thought that way. Although I practiced mindfulness and I had very wonderful experiences too, I never felt it that way. But this young lady, she came to this point and she knew that she knew. And she told me that at that moment I felt that I had become a full human being. How wonderful it is to feel that way. So I said, oh, this is something really wonderful, so beautiful also. To feel that you have become a full human being, that means that you were not a full human being before that. Then I thought, that must be really true. That must be a very powerful experience. So when you are mindful, your mind is at home. You feel safe and secure. You feel dignified. You feel very strong too. Just like people with a very strong home, well-built home. You live in your home. You're secure, you're safe. You feel dignified. But look at those people who have no home, living on roadsides. They don't feel secure, they don't feel safe, they have no dignity. People don't respect them. And it must be very difficult for them to have self-respect even. I'm not sure whether they have self-respect or not, I cannot know. But it must be very difficult to feel self-respect if you are living on the sidewalk. So, in the same way, when your mind is mindful, then your mind is at home. Then you have real dignity. You really have self-respect. Your mind is calm and quiet. Your mind is strong. So when I read this verse, I thought, oh, this is so beautiful and powerful. I have no home. I make mindfulness my home.